Just enjoy and listen to, and have a fun of it.
Welcome back to The Deep Dive. Today, we're going to unpack a festival that almost everyone celebrates but few really understand. Halloween. We'll be looking at its surprising history, it's a massive commercial success, and how it all connects to the tragic crowd crush in Itaewon, which really laid bare some critical failures in public safety. I'm your host, and with me, as always, is our expert analyst to help us connect the dots. Before we jump in, if you like what we do, please make sure you hit subscribe, give us a like, and turn on those notifications. It really helps.
Absolutely. Halloween just passed, and it felt like the right time to really look at this global phenomenon. It's so much more than just a holiday now. It's a huge cultural and economic force.
Okay, so let's frame this. The central question for today is, how did a 2,000-year-old ritual about dressing up to hide from ghosts become a $12 billion festival of self-expression? And how did that evolution ultimately expose a fatal flaw in how we manage public spaces? Let's start at the beginning.
The very beginning takes us back over 2 millennia to a festival called Samhain. Right. It was celebrated by the ancient Celtic peoples in places like Ireland, Scotland, and northern France. And it wasn't a party. It was a major, serious event. It marked the end of the harvest and the start of winter, which for them was basically the season of darkness and death.
Okay.
And the core belief was that on this one night, the veil between our world and the other world, the spirit world, was at its thinnest.
So spirits could just cross over.
Exactly. Both the spirits of ancestors who you might want to guide home and also, more malevolent forces.
And that's where the traditions we recognize today come from, but for completely different reasons. They'd light these huge bonfires to ward off evil.
And the costumes.
The disguises were key. They were not for fun, they were for defense. People wore masks and costumes to conceal their identities from these roaming spirits. It was essentially supernatural camouflage.
That's the perfect way to put it. And over centuries, this tradition got mixed with others. The Romans had their own festivals for the dead, like Feralia. Then Christianity came along, and as it often did, it absorbed these pagan rituals. November 1st became All Saints' Day, or All Hallows' Day.
Making October 31st.
All Hallows' Eve, which over time just got shortened to Halloween.
So a very serious defensive ritual becomes a religious observance. But the really big transformation happens when it crosses the Atlantic. Irish and Scottish immigrants brought these traditions to North America in the 19th century, especially during the Great Famine.
And this is where you see the culture adapt to the new environment.
Yeah, here's a great example of that. We all know the jack-o'-lantern, right? The carved pumpkin.
Of course.
Well, back in Europe, they carved scary faces into turnips or beets. But in North America, pumpkins were everywhere and just so much easier to carve.
So they switched. A simple, practical choice that created an iconic symbol.
Exactly. But here's where the story takes a really interesting turn. Let's talk about trick-or-treating.
This is my favorite part because it feels so ancient. But it's not. It's a surprisingly modern invention. See, during the Great Depression in the 1930s, Halloween in America had gotten, pretty destructive. The trick part was out of control.
What do you mean by destructive? Like egging a house?
So much worse.
Yeah.
We're talking about flipping over cars, cutting phone lines, serious widespread vandalism. Communities were desperate to stop it.
Wow.
So community groups basically invented trick-or-treating as a form of social control.
You're kidding.
Not at all. The idea was to give kids a structured, harmless activity, offer a small treat to prevent a big, destructive trick. It was a way to tame the chaos.
That is incredible. So one of the biggest commercial holidays was essentially created by city officials to stop teenagers from wrecking the town.
Precisely. And it worked. By the 1950s, it was a stable, predictable, and highly commercialized activity.
And the money followed. Just last year, in 2023, consumer spending in the U.S. on Halloween hit a record $12.2 billion.
It's become a necessary annual expenditure right up there with other major holidays.
So beyond the money, what does it do for us now, psychologically? It's mostly secular fun, but that idea of disguise is still central.
It is. That anonymity from the costume and the mask gives adults a kind of temporary liberation. You get to step outside of your everyday self.
A release valve?
A healthy one, actually.
Yeah, right.
Some studies call it a healthy psychological recovery mechanism.
Right.
It lets you release stress, play a little, and that can boost your cognitive resilience.
Okay, let's take a quick breath there. When we come back, we're going to pivot to how this festival was adopted in South Korea and analyze the tragic structural lessons from the Itaewon disaster. Stay with us.
이야기 라디오 방송국에 오신 것을 환영합니다. 세계 각국의 흥미진진한 이야기를 지금 바로 만나보세요.
Welcome back to part 2 of the deep dive. In part 1, we tracked Halloween from an ancient Celtic ritual all the way to a tamed, multi-billion-dollar holiday in North America.
And now we're going to shift our focus to its explosive growth in South Korea and how its unique adoption there revealed some truly tragic flaws in our modern safety systems. Halloween really blew up in Korea after the 2010s. It was heavily driven by marketing aimed at the MZ generation, limited edition products, themed foods, all of that.
Right, but the way people celebrated was fundamentally different. This distinction is crucial. In Korea, the celebration became defined by spontaneous mass gatherings in commercial hotspots like Itaewon or Hongdae.
Spontaneous is the key word there.
It is, because these events lacked an official host. There was no organizer, no one in charge, unlike a parade or a planned festival in the U.S., and that created a huge structural vulnerability.
A vulnerability that led directly to the tragedy on October 29th, 2022. Over 158 people died in the Itaewon Crowd Crush, with almost 200 more injured. The technical cause was something called crowd fluidization. Can you break that down?
Yeah, it's a terrifying phenomenon. When a crowd gets so dense, it stops behaving like a collection of individuals and starts behaving like a liquid. People are no longer in control of their movements. A shock wave can pass through the crowd, and the pressure becomes immense, leading to compressive asphyxiation, a human crush.
And this was classified as an INGI, a human-caused disaster.
It was, which means it was preventable. And the most heartbreaking part is that there were so many warning signs.
The emergency calls.
Exactly. There were 11 separate emergency calls made to 112 between about 6:30 p.m. and 10:10 p.m. People on the ground were calling, saying, "We're about to be crushed, people are falling down," explicitly warning of the danger.
And what was the response?
Incredibly, police were only dispatched to the site once. Many of the other calls were dismissed or just marked as handled without any real action. A total failure of response.
So was this just negligence from the officers on the ground, or was it something bigger?
It was a complete systemic collapse from the top down. The government audit after the fact confirmed it. The most shocking finding was that the Yongsan police deployed 0 dedicated security personnel for crowd control in Itaewon that night.
0. But they knew the crowds would be huge. They had deployed officers in previous years.
They did. But that night, resources were redirected. Manpower was pulled away to manage protests that were happening near the newly relocated presidential office, which is also in the Yongsan district.
So a predictable, massive civilian gathering was left unmanaged because of a decision to prioritize political security.
That's what the audit suggests. That decision created a safety vacuum. On top of that, you have that regulatory gap we talked about. Because it was a hostless event, it fell into a blind spot. There were no official manuals, no agency with clear responsibility to proactively manage it.
It was nobody's job until it was everybody's tragedy.
Well said. Even after the crush began, the local Yongsan district office's disaster headquarters failed to activate properly. It was failure at every single level.
And the audit led to disciplinary action against 62 public officials, 51 from the police alone.
Yeah, the accountability was widespread.
Yeah.
And the societal impact was immediate. For the next 2 years, Halloween basically vanished from the public sphere in Korea.
Right, the marketing self-censorship.
Major companies, theme parks, convenience stores, they all pulled their Halloween promotions. They chose to respect the public mood and national grief over millions in sales.
The whole tragedy forced a really difficult conversation about culture, freedom, and the absolute responsibility of the state to ensure public safety.
Absolutely. And the key policy lesson here is that we have to close that regulatory gap. Spontaneous, hostless gatherings must be formally included in our disaster management systems.
Technology has a role to play there, right?
A huge role. We need mandatory implementation of AI-based crowd prediction technology. Systems that use cameras and sensors to monitor crowd density in real time. And when the density hits a predetermined danger level, it has to automatically trigger a mandatory immediate intervention. No more waiting for a 112 call to be taken seriously.
So we've gone from a story about ancient spirits to modern AI-driven safety protocols.
It's a long and tragic arc.
Halloween's history really is this incredible journey of defense, then religion, then commerce, and finally, a devastating lesson in the need for proactive safety management.
And that leaves us with a final thought to consider. The original holiday, and even its modern form, provides this really valuable psychological release for people. Anonymity, play, stress relief.
So how do we protect that?
That's the challenge. How can our society create safe spaces for that kind of healthy, spontaneous fun without also creating the conditions for a tragedy born from structural neglect and human error?
A difficult question, but one we absolutely have to answer. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive. Please don't forget to subscribe, hit that like button, and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. We're closing the Story Vault for today. We'll be back soon with more fascinating material. Thank you.